Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Hi, folks. Welcome back. I'm going to spend some time, a little bit longer video than usual, on this so-called Disinformation Bureau that's been formed in the Department of Homeland Security. Now, those are guys that, the department, I was against it, and I was against the Patriot Act a long time ago. A lot of you are young, you don't remember. That was the knee-jerk reaction of the 9/11 attacks. And I think it was a huge mistake. It's the Patriot Act that got all those illegal warrants and all kinds of stuff with a secret FISA court and all that, and it was very dystopian. And everybody said so, including me. And of course, I was considered a liberal Democrat, but I was against Big Brother, period. And so were most of the Democrats, actually. They were almost 99% of them were against it. But some voted for it anyway because they didn't want to seem unpatriotic. The Republicans had them in a box. If you don't vote for defending the homeland, what can you possibly want to defend? It's our homeland, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds on that, but this is where all this started and came from. That was the genesis, I think, of this nonsense called the Disinformation Bureau. Let's read on, because not only is it ridiculous, the person they got heading it is absolutely, batshit crazy. Let's just tell the truth here. President Biden came under fire Thursday for the creation of the dystopian Disinformation Bureau created under his Homeland Security Department, which critics are blasting as just wanting for the government to police free speech online. That's true. Conservatives slammed the Department of Homeland Security's Orwellian Disinformation Governance Board, with some even suggesting the timing is convenient given Elon Musk's vow to make Twitter a free speech haven after his $44 billion takeover. Senator Josh Hawley called the board a disgrace and monitor all American speech, which it does. In a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, Hawley said he initially thought Wednesday's announcement was satire. Yeah, it does sound like a Babylon Bee. Article, doesn't it? Surely no American administration will ever use the power of government to sit in judgment on the First Amendment speech of its own citizens. Sadly, I was mistaken. Rather than protecting our border or government homeland, American homeland, you have chosen to make policing America's speech your priority. They're losing the narrative. Now, here's the funny part. As you can see here in the picture, Biden selected Nina Jankowicz to lead the Department of Homeland Security's Disinformation Governance Board. Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert accused Democrats of spending the last weeks planting the seeds for the backup plan in case the Twitter deal actually happened. I believe that to be true. She, too, called the news dystopian and said the left can't afford to tell the truth by anything but what they say. The hashtag of Ministry of Truth is also trending on Twitter. And it's just really interesting. You can read the rest because we're going to go over several articles here. I don't want to. Big Sister is watching you. Now, that's the individual that was picked for this. I can't even remember the name of it now. I still call it the Ministry of Truth. Disinformation Governance Board. Big Sister is watching you. Now, let's do a little video here of this young lady who works for the Wilson Institute, I believe it's called. Arguably, Woodrow Wilson is the worst president in existence in the history of the country. It makes Andrew Johnson look credible. I don't want to go into that. Maybe someday I'll go into the history of Wilson. What a despicable human being he was. But anyway, here's a little video of this young lady not too long ago. Now, here she is in a video on Twitter, on Jack Posobiec's page. There she is in the bottom right-hand corner, the new head of the Disinformation Governance Board, and what she said in 2020. Interesting that the executive branch shouldn't have the power to determine what is fake news. I find that fascinating. Let's take a listen.
That, with President Trump right now calling all of these news organizations that have inconvenient for him stories that they're getting out there, that he's calling fake news and now lashing out at platforms. I would never want to see our executive branch have that sort of power. And that's why, the legislative process with our duly elected
I would never want to see the executive branch have that kind of power. That's why we have a legislative branch, basically a check and a balance. Huh. Oh, I see how it works. We're righteous. The opposition isn't. They're evil. They're evil, radical Nazis and misogynists and homophobes and transphobes and blah, 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 blah. We are pure of heart. So that way, if we control everything, be granted we'll be fair because our goals are just. We're pushing forward for equity for everyone and We're right and they're wrong. We're pure of heart. We won't take all this power and misuse it. We would never do that. In essence, that's exactly what she's saying.
Officials is really important, that sort of consultative rulemaking process. And we can't just govern by executive order anymore. I think I'll leave it there.
We can't run the country by executive order, even though the day one of Joseph Biden as president had a whole stack of executive orders. These people are such hypocrites. It boggles the mind. Let's listen on.
I think the reverberations in the free speech space are huge. Not to mention, this is exactly what Section 230 was designed to do, to allow the platforms to enforce the standards on their own spaces. So I think,
That's a lie. From someone as so highly educated as her, that's not why Section 230 was put up. Section 230 was put up back in the 90s, I believe, to shield social media companies from liability and lawsuits, as well as they should have been. If somebody posts that Joe Jones is an ex offender and Joe Jones isn't, Joe Jones can't turn around and sue Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or anybody because they're a platform and not a publisher. So that's a lie. That's not even distorting the truth. That's an outright lie.
The entire conversation is being obviously blown out of proportion for political reasons. But in the more democratic countries, I'm thinking in particular of Poland. Poland has established this consultative process with its Ministry of Digitalization and Facebook.
Ministry of Digitalization and Facebook. Basically what they're doing is the same thing that she's going to run. And she doesn't like the government overreach by the executive. Because the executive is Donald Trump. And that's the only effing reason.
Because like the Trump administration, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Law and Justice Party got this idea from the Trump administration.
The Law and Justice Party. Obey the law and have equal justice for all. How can you criticize that? How can you criticize justice? Or at least the attempt at it. It's never going to be perfect. And they criticize that, and she's laughing. This woman's a psychopath.
They believe that there's anti-conservative bias on Facebook, even though there have been multiple studies that prove otherwise.
Multiple studies by who? Everybody knows, and is now, as we're realizing, as Twitter is running around, the employees anyway, with their hair on fire, trying to correct everything before the new owner comes in, to show how biased they really and truly were, the number one social media platform in the world. All of a sudden now, hundreds of thousands of followers are popping up for some people that are conservative, and some of the other ones that weren't are losing hundreds of thousands of followers because they padded the numbers. I wonder if YouTube does that for me here. There's no way I could have the small amount of watch time that I have. I've seen channels that are just ridiculous in politics and news that seem to be monetized. And I can't break 2,000 watch hours in a year. I don't buy it. But I digress.
And they have this consultative process where they send someone from the Ministry of Digitalization to discuss with Facebook's officers in Warsaw all of the instances of unfair content moderation, and some of them are being overturned through that political pressure. They have a tip line that people can kind of report when they think their content.
Yeah, and you're doing exactly the same thing. The only difference is Joe Biden's president, Trump isn't. You people suck so bad. I wonder if these other two are thinking today that took part in this so-called discussion. It's disgusting.
Has been unjustly overturned, and the Trump administration has a similar thing. So it's providing a lot of fodder for anti-democratic online governance, and it's
fodder for anti-democrat bias. It's incredible to me. These people they think the American people have a memory of 30 seconds, and a lot of them do, unfortunately. This is her. Not that long ago. This is back in 2020. Not a million years ago, by any stretch of the imagination. What a freaking hypocrite. And a liar, I might add, because she doesn't believe a word of this. Now we're going to go to Newsweek. Disinformation head Nina Jakonowicz, if I'm pronouncing that right, nor do I care, addresses Hunter Biden laptop remarks. President Joe Biden's choice to lead the Department of Homeland Security, it might as well be the Democratic Party's Homeland Security. New Disinformation Governance Board has addressed a previous statement she made about Hunter Biden laptop. Nina, who was a disinformation fellow at the Wilson Center, like I said, is probably the top 5 worst presidents we've ever had in the history of the country, has cast down the New York Post reporting about a laptop believed to have belonged to Hunter Biden's son. Conservative news outlets, including the Washington Examiner, pointed to Jakonowicz's comments about the laptop story suggested she had spread disinformation. She tweeted during the presidential debate between Biden and former President Donald Trump that took place on 22nd October 2020 and referenced the laptop. Back on the laptop from hell, apparently, Biden notes 50 former NATSEC, national security officials, and 5 former CIA heads that believe the laptop was a Russian influence op, she said. Trump says Russia, 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 she says. On Wednesday, she retweeted the 2020 tweet, and apparently in response to criticism and said, for those who believe this tweet is a key to all my views, it is simply a direct quote from both candidates during the presidential debate. That's a lie. If you look at my timing, you will see I was live tweeting that evening. She said the whole thing was just all made up. She also shared a link to a ballotpedia.org about the debate. The page contained a link to its transcript and a YouTube video of the debate. She had spoken to the Associated Press for an article published October 15, 2020, and reportedly said there were questions about whether the laptop belonged to Hunter Biden. And here's the key sentence right here. We should view it as a Trump campaign product, she said at the time, pointing to the involvement of former New York City Rudy Giuliani and Trump associate Steve Bannon. Does that sound like she was quoting just from the so-called debate? Not at all. Not at all. And you saw from her previous video, she was concerned that the executive branch would have too much power over the social media. We'll call it the court square, where ideas and thoughts are transmitted in real time by millions of people all over the world, including the U.S. She thought that was too much power for the executive to have. But there she is saying a Trump campaign product was the Hunter Biden laptop. So we all know now that the Hunter Biden laptop is real because Twitter censored it, which caused 40% of the population that voted in 2020 not to know about it at all. That's election interference, in my opinion, and I think it is in reality as well. So, hypocrites, hypocrites. What a shock. Let's go one more article here. Lauren Boebert leads effort to defund Biden administration's Disinformation Board. It is our duty to shut down this department immediately, Boebert told Fox News Digital. I'll tell you the truth. I like to see the Department of Homeland Security busted up. Take about a half of its budget, put it into border security, to be honest with you. And they do some other, there's all the legitimate work they do, but what they're doing with it, they're weaponizing their departments against their political enemies. Psaki now defends Chacona, which claims DHS misinformation board continuation of work under Trump. What a crock of crap. That's a lie. Representative Lauren Boebert from Colorado has authored legislation to shut down a new Department of Homeland Security board designed to police misinformation. Boebert's legislation will defund the Misinformation Governance Board and ensure the federal government doesn't have a role in defining what truth is for the American people. It's got the mainstream media that's backed up the Democrats for God knows how long, and especially the last 5 years. They were the disinformation department. This kind of stuff is terrifying. We in Congress have the power of the purse. It is our duty to shut down this department immediately, Boebert told Fox News Digital Friday in an interview. I'm calling on leadership in the Republican Party, Leader McCarthy, Whip Scalise, and others to join me in calling for this department to be shut down and defunded. This is Stalin-level stuff. I don't think people are fully understanding the severity of what a Ministry of Truth organized by DHS truly means. This is Stalin level. This is Mao level. This is the hill to die on. And it is. It is the hill to die on. Look at what happened, the influence that non-reporting of the Hunter Biden laptop on Twitter had in our election. This is the hill to die on. Representative for McCarthy did not immediately respond to whether he backs this bill or efforts to impeach DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, which Boebert also wants. Scalise supports Boebert's bill. McCarthy's the one, by the way, that had hidden audio tapes come up that said they wanted certain Republicans that responded to the January 6th riot to be swept off of social media. I'm wondering if McCarthy's going to end up being the speaker. I sure as hell hope not. As they used to say in Washington, the Democrats are the Harlem Globetrotters and the Republicans are the Washington Generals. If for those of you that know, it's just a team that always plays the Globetrotters and plays really well, but always loses. Both Scalise and McCarthy recently signed onto a letter questioning Mayorkas' suitability for office, but didn't specifically raise impeachment. No, Mayorkas is just doing exactly what the progressive Democrats want. Exactly what they want. Now, I know this video is running a little long, but I think this is one of the hills to die on. The Second Amendment is the other. This is First Amendment stuff. How does that go? The comic said that the reason why the Second Amendment is second, in case the first one doesn't work out. Well, they're going after the First Amendment. And they're going to be able to tell. So you're going to be able to have a government board of biased hack politician progressives determine what is truth and what isn't. When they can't even define sexuality. I can't go into detail because this is YouTube and they'll kill this video or my channel. These people are batshit crazy. Now they want control over all information. Fox is holding up the wall from caving in. Whether you like Fox or not is immaterial. At least there's some so-called opposition in cable news. They lost Twitter. The progressives have lost Twitter, and their hair is on fire. This has been in the works for a long time. You just don't put this kind of thing together overnight. You've had it in the wings, ready to go. And then when Twitter falls, and is going to fall, from the progressives' reach and control, they're going to put this in. There's going to be a hell of a crap storm coming, folks. Who's telling the truth and who isn't? Who's a liar and who isn't? Wait for the ads that come out in the midterms. Those are going to be a riot. I know one thing for absolute certainty. The progressives have been lying to the American people through social media and cable news for a very long time. And they stepped it up substantially in the last 5 to 6 years. It's going to come to a head. Who's going to win? The American people or the progressives that control what they see and hear and think? It's up to you to decide. Until the next time, goodbye and good luck.